A warm welcome to Diski Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I ask that you please do subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So on today's episode, I've got one of my favorite guests. He goes by the name of Javas. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, my brother.
Always good to have you, bro. Yeah. Always good to have you. Yeah, how's your week been?
It's been chill, great football has been playing, so I can't complain.
Yeah, that's lovely. And as always, I am your host with the most, and I go by the name of Luyolo. So on today's episode, we discuss all things local football. And in the extra time segment, we celebrate one of our very own who's just signed a major deal in Europe. So let's get straight into it, Javas. We'll start with Coach Gavin Hunt, as he's just been appointed as Chippa United's head coach. What do you make of that appointment?
I mean, it's quite a surprise to all the fans and football lovers, Many of us didn't expect that move, But I just want to see how it's going to actually mold out because, we spoke about this a few weeks ago that the way Chippa United operate with the whole chopping and changing coaches, So I just want to see if this time around, because now they've got a big coach who's got a good CV, who's won titles, will they actually keep him or will he follow the door just like the other coaches? You understand?
Yeah.
So, I mean... personally, I think, where else was he going to go, you understand? I mean, the Cape Town City have just reappointed Eric Tinkler.
Yeah.
Super Sports seemed to be content with their coach. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And,
And Stellenbosch as well.
Yeah, so
they also announced that Steve would be staying on.
You understand?
So, yeah.
So, Eastern Cape is not a bad province. So, I mean, hopefully he can, take Chippa to the top 8 and maybe the owner will be happy and actually keep him. I'm actually surprised because I heard he actually got a big check from Chief, so I thought he'd be okay, but then I guess it's passion at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I think he definitely missed the training ground and he missed having a squad to coach on a daily basis, However, for me, I was very surprised. I was very surprised because I thought that he would wait just a couple of months and maybe look for a bigger team, with all due respect to Chippa United. However, there are teams which come with much more lucrative offers with regards to the stature of the team. So I thought that he'd wait it out. However, we do see that he has been appointed as the head coach. And another interesting thing for me was sort of getting to realize that Mr. Chippa Mbengesi could afford his salary, because knowing Gavin Hunt and the type of CV, the type of experience, he is one coach that would obviously be on a huge salary, But what I have to make of this appointment is that if things play out as Mr. Mbengesi did say they'd play out, then I think it could be a good signing because in the press conference, Mr. Mbengesi did mention that Gavin Hunt is not a head coach, but he's a manager, as he will bring his stability and organization to Chippa United. With that being said, whenever Gavin Hunt has been given that role where he's got carte blanche to sign players, he's got carte blanche to build a side the way he wishes, we've seen that he can find success, at SuperSport and at Wits. So if that's the case, then I think then Gavin Hunt will be able to build a very competitive team at Chippa United. He will be able to get them into top 8 and then eventually challenging for the domestic trophies. So I then think that that is a good appointment from that perspective, and that's if Mr. Mbengesi keeps his word, and that's if he's going to be patient, Another thing that remains to be seen, and that will be very interesting, is if he's allowed to sign his type of players. Because the story with Gavin Hunt, he needs his own players. So it's going to be very interesting to see if he's given freedom within the transfer window. But I hope that he is, because if he is, this then means that we could see a change with regards to how Chippa United run their football club. Because we've been saying that things have to change at Chippa United. So if Gavin Hunt is there and is allowed to build, then we could see a coach at Chippa United for at least a couple of years.
Yeah. I've also heard with management that he wants to bring in Darren Keet to become his assistant, so I think that will be a great combination,
Yeah, I think that will be a very good appointment within his technical team, because you've got one of the most decorated players in PSL, and you've got a player who, over the course of time, has shown his leadership skills. Over the course of time, he's shown how he's good with people, So I think he'll be very important to those young players who are coming through. And also because Darren Keet himself is from Gqeberha. So, so I think then it's good to get a local. It's good to get a guy who knows the community and who's familiar with the surroundings. So, yeah, it's a very interesting signing, and it remains to be seen how he's going to do. That's one we're going to have to keep our eye on and see what happens going forward with regards to that. So, moving on to the next segment. So, from Eastern Cape, we now go to Cape Town. Cape Town City have signed Darren Keet on a 3-year deal. What do you make of Darren Keet's return to the DStv Premiership with Cape Town City?
For me, it's a very good signing. He's an experienced goalkeeper. He's got national caps under him. From an early under 20, we know he's been there, and he's got international experience. So for me, I'm happy with the signing. I mean, considering that Hlompho has actually departed now, so we want to have somebody who can fill in that void, because he was actually a good goalkeeper. I mean, if you check his stats, he's up there top 3 with the clean sheets in the PSL, like past 3 seasons or so. So I mean, Darren Keet, for me, he's the perfect man who can fit in that role, because if I look at the available goalkeepers that you could sign at the moment, so I think I'm looking forward to him, whether he adjusts, because the backup goalkeepers, I don't see them as like people who would start at, I think, who's it, Stephens or something like that. I've seen
he actually left, so they've signed Bongani Mpandle, who was the backup at Maritzburg, and then there's young Mark Anderson, who got promoted from the MDC squad.
Yeah, so not much experience. So Darren Keet, for me, I expect him to start.
No, definitely. I think he walks straight into that starting 11, especially because Cape Town City in the past season, they did have a couple of defensive problems and defensive frailties, which is actually shocking, because when you look at the back four in Mubara, Phillies, at right back you have Mkize, and then Mashahwa.
You expect more, from the 3, As for Mashahwa, I'm not too sure. So then, would you then bring Edmilson back, because he does definitely, like without a doubt, he's experienced, so he's my preferred left back. I mean, he can also slot in as a centre back. We've seen that in the past, but whether as a left back or centre back, he does the job.
So I think then going into this season, a back 5 of Darren Keet in goal. At left back, Edmilson. two centre backs being Mubara and Phillies. At right back, Mkize. I think that could be one of the best defenses within the league, So I thoroughly look forward to seeing Darren Keet playing DStv Premiership football again, because this also bodes very well for the national team, because we do know that in that department there hasn't been much competition. Ronwen Williams has been the only goalkeeper who's been playing consistently. So I look forward to that. So So moving on to Mamelodi Sundowns. So a lot has been happening with regards to the transfer window. However, we now touch on the older guys, the senior players. Some would dub them as legends. And we'll start with Tiyani Mabunda, who has reportedly been offered an ambassadorial role at the club, which then would mean that he'd have to retire. What do you make of him potentially becoming one of the ambassadors at Mamelodi Sundowns and having to hang up his boots? Do you think that that would be a good move for him? Or do you think that he should try and find a club and keep playing football? What's your take?
I mean, it's up to him, I mean, he's a family man, so another thing that you have to consider, I mean, he's had a great career, Yes, it started with Black Leopards, then in the middle it was a bit sloppy, but he managed to revive his career, and he turned out to be one of the great defensive midfielders. So he's got national experience with Bafana Bafana, and also, I'm not sure if there are any teams who actually want him. I haven't seen players, teams who are interested in him, but he's a good player. Sometimes I feel like if you think about like your future long term, and what offer you have on the plate at the moment, I think he should take the role, because I mean he's part of the Sundowns family, so it would be easy for him to just fill out that role instantly. You understand? So, and I don't see him playing if he stays. I don't see him playing. I mean, we've got Jali, and also Kotier fill that position like tremendously. So I mean, I feel like he should take the role, because you look at his age, career is coming to an end. So
it's quite the tricky one, because if you consider the fact that in the past 2 seasons he hasn't played much football, you'd obviously like to end your football career having gotten that satisfaction. Not that I'm saying he's not satisfied. However, if you hadn't really played in the last 2 seasons, it does unsettle you a bit. I'd like to think that you'd like to play your last season of football having had some minutes under the belt, and then you leave feeling satisfied. And then when I look at Tiyani, I don't see a person who's done. I still see a guy who can contribute to a football team for at least another 2 years. So yes, we mentioned age, but with regards to his skill set, with regards to how fit he is and how well he looks after himself, I still think that he's got quite a bit to offer within the DStv Premiership. However, you did mention that it doesn't seem as if there's many teams interested in his services. So I think for him, then, he just has to first look at who's interested, and if no offers really come, or if any convincing offers come, then he should look at taking the role. However, if I were him, I'd look at playing first and finishing off my career, knowing that I got to play the last couple of years, because once he takes that role, he's never going to get it. He's never going to get a chance to get back onto the field.
He'll ask himself many questions at night. So that's another thing you don't want to do.
So it remains to be seen with that one. So let's move on to Thembi Zwane, who has signed a contract extension. Yes, the rumor mill had gone into overdrive with regards to if he would stay or if he'd end up leaving and joining Chiefs, because we do know that in the past it has happened with many Sundowns players who, when they were in negotiations, then the deal would fall through, then they'd end up moving to Kaizer Chiefs. But the question that I have for you is, what do you make of him extending for Sundowns and his importance to that side?
It's great for him and the club. I mean, clearly the club has pointed out that he's actually a crucial player for the team. The fact that they're actually extending his contract, it shows that his performances are actually being monitored and the club actually appreciate his services. So I mean, he's a good player. I expect him to actually be there and taking a different role. It was obviously now we know that he's in his 30s, and he actually wanna be the one who's actually leading the young guys like the Mkulisis of this world, and actually nurturing them and showing them how to be disciplined on and off the field, because we haven't seen any tabloids of him throughout his career, and he's been like a star player, so it's a similar path like Yeye. So I mean, he's a good asset for the club.
Yeah, so I'm very happy that they managed to actually extend that contract, because I feel that he's so important to Mamelodi Sundowns. Yeah. And this is an unpopular opinion, but I still feel like there's so much more we're still going to see from Thembi Zwane.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's at the end yet. I say that because traditionally speaking, if you look at a lot of South African footballers, they tend to mature and hit their prime a lot later, in their careers. You're looking at 27 to about 30. That's when they really come into their prime.
True.
So, and if you have a look at the past 2 seasons, how well he's played with regards to the goal contributions, with regards to how many assists he's been able to get, you're looking at a player who's very consistent. You're looking at a player who's in his prime. So I still think that he has a lot to offer for Mamelodi Sundowns. And going forward, I think he'll be key in trying to win the Champions League again for Mamelodi Sundowns, because we do know that that's the one trophy, on the continental stage, which eludes them, and then the MTN 8 as well. Those are the 2 trophies that they will really want to ensure that they win coming up this season. So I'm really excited that they've managed to tie him down, and especially because in this modern day, it's very easy for players who have been at a club for a long time to just leave and end up joining the rivals. I mean, we've seen this so many times, and I mean, just a week ago, Ramos went and joined PSG, So you never want to allow certain players to leave, because when you allow them to leave, you strengthening your rivals, which then can cost you when it comes to domestic competitions and within Champions League football going forward. However, let's move on to a man who I think is arguably one of their best, if not their best, captains of all time in the history of the club, Mr. Hlompho Kekana. So the first question I have for you is, what do you make of his omission from the side? Because when they won the treble, he was a very important part of the team, and he was a mainstay, he was a regular, and he contributed so much with regards to his leadership and with regards to how he controlled that midfield for Sundowns. And we know Hlompho Kekana always comes up with a couple of amazing goals, season in, season out, and a couple of assists as well. What do you make of him being omitted from the starting 11?
I mean, it's not a surprise, because, like I said, I mean, you want to, when you're building a team, especially with the new coaches, you want to plan for the future. So if you're using players who have been there, it's, what are we working towards, you understand?
Yeah.
And, yes, we appreciate Hlompho's services, but, we have to move on, we appreciate what he's done for the club, like you said, the goals as well. But, I mean, if you're looking at the next 5 years, he's not in your plans.
Yeah.
So you have to bring in the new guys to see and test if they can gel with the team and all of that, you understand?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like he can still play. We both know that he can still play.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you're building for the future, then, it's hard, because you have to make that strong decision and just exclude it. So, yeah. And he's also the captain, So,
Yeah, so speaking of that, for me, it's been a bitter pill to swallow for me.
Too much. I mean, it's been like, 10 years now?
Yeah.
So I mean, he was also there when they beat, what's that team? Power Lines. 24-0. Yeah. So, I mean, he's been there.
So it's a bitter pill to swallow for me, because, hey, man, I just don't feel like he's done, When it comes to football, I want to explain something, my notion, right? got a problem with media and a lot of footballing teams, not just in South Africa but around the world, that as soon as you hit 32, 33, they push you into retirement.
It's like they've written you off.
They've written you off based on what they see on your ID, as opposed to looking at your performances. Right? So that my argument then becomes, how is it a man who was playing so well, who won the treble, who was a key player, all of a sudden, a couple months later, some people are saying that, no, it's an age thing, the legs are gone. Some people are saying he's beyond his prime. How does that, how does that make sense? I don't know of a man who ages so quickly in a space of 2 months. Do you understand? Do you understand? So to me, his omission from the side, I'm not happy with it. It still doesn't make sense to me. Yes, I acknowledge that when you build for the long term, you're looking at the next 5 years, right? However, if the player is a key player, if the player is important and integral to the side, then why are you putting him to the side? Because the argument then I can come up is, then why is Nascimento still playing? Why is Onyango still in goals? Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't we have younger guys in those positions? We do. Perfectly able to come in and slot in. But those guys are important and they form the spine of the team. So I'm still not thoroughly happy. And I just don't feel like anybody has been thoroughly able to substantiate as to why they omitted him. At times, it's almost as if, I don't know, it's like proving a point, or maybe we trying to build with our own players. We don't want to use the players who are underneath Pito's regime. I don't know, But then my question to you is, if Pito was still there, do you think that Pito would have put him on not on the bench, the stands?
No, never. He was going to be playing week in, week out. He would be there wearing the armband, scoring those crackers.
You see, so yeah, man. But anyway, now a question that I do want to ask you with regards to Hlompho Kekana, as he's been linked to Swallows. What do you make of him potentially going to play for Swallows?
I mean, he's been in the PSL for about 15 years, and for the first time, he can say this is the season where he actually hasn't gotten game time, and it's and you can't without any injuries or nothing. So I think he should. The time has come, every footballer there comes a time where you have to make a choice, and you can. There's no need to stay at a place where you are not appreciated or wanted. If they don't want to use your services, then what can you do? I mean, you've got a wonderful team who just done well in their debut season. So, I mean, I feel like you should take the role. Who knows, me? And it's got so many experienced players. You've got Vuyomere, Mataba. You understand? So we know Swallows as to take I wouldn't say, I don't know what to call it, worn out players but rusted players, let me call them. But, rusted players who are still in shape, who are still on form. So we can look at the past, Shabangu, Nomvete. So it seems like that same tradition is being applied now. Because we've seen the same Vuyomeres, So, I mean, who knows? Maybe it could work out,
Yeah, so personally, I think that would be a great signing for Swallows. Because you'd slot into that midfield with Cheese Boy, and then there's also Nyatama as well. So then there's also Kamuhelo Mahlatsi, so a young player. So there's very experienced players, and I think he would gel within that squad, especially because of how they play, their style of play and their approach to football, So I think it would be a great signing for Swallows, because you also want a man who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, won the trophies, and some of those boys who would be coming through, and some of the players from Glad Africa who've just signed for Swallows would then have a great example and a great leader, within the dressing room, which would only do them a world of good with regards to acquiring the knowledge and the experience that it takes to play at the highest level, and also make a great career within the PSL for yourself, So I think that would be a great signing. So we did touch on Onyango and Nascimento. The question I want to ask you with these two players who are also senior statesmen of the team, who've also been there, done that. They've won the trophies, and some people feel like, hey, maybe it's time now that we bring in younger players. What do you make of these two going into the next season? Do they start, or do you think it's time to bring in Ricardo Goss for Nyango and then bring in Deruk alongside Lebusa for Nascimento?
Interesting. With the goalkeeping department, no argument whatsoever. Ricardo Goss has to obviously take over now. I mean, we've seen him, his penalties, the way he saves them. I mean, I'm impressed, So I actually wanted him for Chiefs. But he chose obviously Sundowns. So I think it's time for him to step up now, and so without a doubt, I trust him to do that, and I hope he actually gets given the chance now. And also with Deruk, I haven't gotten time to watch the boy, but whenever he's played, I must say that his presence is felt. As young as he is, he's a good player. He's like Mubara. When he was still at Ajax. I used to love the way he played. So I think it's a tough one, because who's it? Nascimento is a quality player, and look at his stats for penalties scored. I mean, nobody takes penalties like Nascimento in the Premier League. I mean, in the PSL, it's similar to like Jorginho, So I trust him in that department, but I always trust experience over, the youth, the young guys. The young guys have nothing to lose, and centre back role it's meant for experience. That's why you get players who retired 35, 40, even playing in that position. You're not gonna get a striker at 40 years old running there like Usain Bolt. You're not gonna get a striker. So I mean, that age it should be cool, calm, collected, and Nascimento is perfect. I mean, you can't complain because he hasn't been doing anything wrong. So when I leave him there, let him play.
Okay, so then the question then becomes because a lot of people from a tactical perspective, they speak of balance, of having a left-sided centre-half who's left-footed and a right-sided centre-half who's right-footed. So there's Lebusa and there's Nascimento. Yes, both of them have been playing, and because of how intelligent and how skillful and technically sound Nascimento is, he does play on the right side even though he's left-footed, but he never gets caught out and he's still able to progress the ball as if it was a right-footed centre-back. What do you then make of that? Do you then think that it should be Nascimento and Lebusa going forward, or do you want to see a left-sided centre-back who's left-footed and a right-sided centre-back who's right-footed?
When it comes to football, we don't play according to who team is right, or we play based on your performance. If both centre backs use their left and they're solid and they do the job, why not put them there? You understand? I'm not gonna compromise Lebusa and take him to left back because we've got who's been doing a phenomenal job. You understand? So I mean, these guys are solid. Like, you must watch Lebusa. I trust Lebusa. One-on-one is solid, and they just complement each other well.
Very well,
Like, Lebusa is more of the sweeper. He's there tackling, and then Nascimento's calm, the build-up play. So, it's just unfortunate. Lebusa must work on his right. Then maybe, Lebusa must go and train. You must watch Marcelo videos there.
So I definitely agree with you, on that, because it has been a talking point, that okay, two left-footed centre-backs, that's something that's not really, we're not used to that. But I mean, if they do the job, they keep the clean sheets, they're able to progress the ball from defence into midfield by breaking the lines and still being able to be efficient with regards to their passing ability, with regards to reading of the game, then I don't really see the need because many a times in world football we've seen right-footed left backs. You know, we've seen left-footed players who like to play from the right. You know, just as long as you're able to do the job, because it would be, in my opinion, it would be very harsh to omit Nascimento because he doesn't play with his right foot, Same thing with Lebusa because they've been very solid,
Solid.
I just think then with Deruk that he must just, I think, keep working hard and his chance will come. And I say his chance will come because we do know that Mamelodi Sundowns do tend to compete on all fronts.
Yeah.
So there is going to be an opportunity for him to play. It's just as first choice, I'm not quite sure. Going to Onyango, I think it's time for Ricardo Goss. That change has to be made. And when that change is made, it won't just benefit Mamelodi Sundowns, but it will benefit the whole of South Africa with regards to Bafana Bafana. Because like I had mentioned earlier on with Darren Keet coming back, we haven't really had competition in that department. It's been Ronwen Williams,
Yeah.
So it would be fantastic if we had at least 3 or 4 guys competing for that number 1 jersey at Bafana Bafana level. Yeah. Speaking of Bafana Bafana, that's actually a great way into the next segment. So the next segment, ladies and gentlemen, is Bafana Bafana at COSAFA Cup. So, Javas, I want to know, what have you made of the performances so far at the COSAFA Cup, and who do you think will be instrumental with regards to leading the team forward?
I mean, it's a new set of players, and they've taken their chance. I mean, they've been called up by the national team, and they've been showing some trailblazing performances. So I'm happy with their performances at the COSAFA Cup. I mean, they've played 2 games and 6 points. So some of when it's we haven't played together for a long time. It's these players come from various clubs and all of that, but the way they play, the way they move the ball, you'd swear as if they have played maybe you left the squad, you understand?
Yeah.
But obviously it's different levels. You can't compare because we know the COSAFA Cup and CAF, the AFCON, it's different
levels.
Different levels, you understand. But I mean, they have been showing some great football, and I hope that it's not the last time that we see these players, because some of these players, I think maybe 1, 2 or 3 maybe can even go play with the senior players and give them a chance. So I'm looking at that player for AmaZulu.
Sithebe.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen him. He's the midfield, the way he plays. So
very organized.
Very organized. So for me, if they can play him all the time, I think he's the man to watch in the Bafana Bafana team.
Yeah, so definitely I've been very impressed with Sithebe's performances, over the past 2 seasons. I think he's done very well for himself at AmaZulu. And it's a deserved call-up. He really deserves it because, it's always good to see younger and fresh players, especially players who actually deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Players who deserve to be there. Another player who we touched on in the previous segment, Rasheen Deruk, I've been very impressed with his performances and how he's marshaled his defense, and especially because of the structure that they have, What I'm really liking, is that you can see what they're trying to do, how they play from the back. You can see the passing patterns in midfield, and you can see how they move the ball. So that has impressed me a lot, because sometimes over the years, whenever we'd see Bafana Bafana play, it was almost as if these guys don't know each other, and we're just playing, to get the result. But this time around, they have a structure. And I love how they build up from the back. They're very comfortable on the ball. I've also been very impressed with Dube, who has reportedly signed with Kaizer Chiefs as well. Yeah. I think he's also another defensive player who's very comfortable on the ball. And Kulisi, for me, it's great to see Uplesa playing in that role. And, a player who who I think he has to be in the Bafana Bafana fold.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the time now going forward that when we go to AFCON qualifiers, when we go to World Cup qualifiers, those are the guys that should be playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's time to integrate them now, you know. Yes, Mbule and Tebucho are with the Olympic team, but if they were part of this fold, those are the three guys who I think should be starting in the midfield, you know, for Bafana Bafana, you know. Going forward, because I think this is the time to integrate those players in now. You know, not when they're 29. No, it's too late. Then
they must play now.
Now is the right time. You know, and another youngster I've been impressed with is Ethan Brooks. You know, who's very confident on the ball, and what I like about him, he doesn't look out of place. You know, you'd never say that this is a guy who's new to professional football. You know, I think he's just taken it on very well, very confident as well. So I'm happy with how we look. My only issue is going forward, right, is that how many of these players are going to be included in the World Cup qualifiers, you know? And also when you consider that many a times with Bafana Bafana, you see a lot of people getting call-ups, but when it's time to go play the serious games, the big matches, you hardly see any of them. Now you're gonna see Jali Pack, Zoom. Do you understand? You're gonna see all these guys, and not that I have a problem with the Jalis and Zooms, because in my opinion, those are the guys who should be playing. You know, my qualm is why then can't we use COSAFA Cup as preparation for the World Cup qualifiers? Yes, COSAFA Cup is not on the same level as World Cup qualifiers or as AFCON. However, it's great preparation for the players, because then you start to gel as a team, you know, and you start to formulate certain patterns, and you build tactically, and certain technical nuances are then refined, which I think is very important. So I then say, if we're not going to see a lot of these boys going forward, then I feel that it was sort of counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve within the next couple of months of trying to qualify at to the World Cup, you know, because then I'm looking at an opportunity where you've got a handful of games where you can have the bulk of the guys, the main guys, now coming together and playing. That would have been great preparation for them. However, the positive that I will take out of this is that there's some young players who are doing really well, and hopefully they grow, and that when they return to their clubs, when the season does start again, they would have gained much needed experience going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, this one needs a drum roll. In the extra time segment, ladies and gentlemen, in the extra time segment of today's episode, we are going to discuss Thembi Kgatlana, who's just signed a deal with Atletico Madrid. What do you make of those great news, John?
Quality signing. I mean, you know, she's a quality player. I mean, you know, it's as if, you know, we can include her in the men's team. You know, you know, I mean, I've been following her career from, you know, since she was a teenager. You know, I've seen her play before, so, you know, I've never questioned her ability, you know, from when she broke through at 18, you know, she's been there representing Banyana. And, you know, this is our current Portia Modise, you know. And I'm glad that she's playing at the highest level, where she deserves to be, you know. You know, so, I mean, it's good that we, as a country, you know, clearly we are doing something right. So we should acknowledge the women's football just as much as we acknowledge the men's. So I'm happy. We should celebrate her, you know. Yeah,
big time. And I think we mustn't wait for her to retire or anything.
You understand?
You know, here on Disky Talk with Liolo, Thembi, we are so proud of you and your achievement. And we say all the best of luck going forward. We do hope that you achieve each and every single desire that you have, because you've done really well in the past couple of years. You've represented us very well. And I'm glad that you mentioned that we should acknowledge, you know. I think then this should be something that wakes the rest of us up within South Africa to start taking the women's game a lot more seriously and to see more more emphasis, more funding, and a lot more care when it comes to the women's football, because it's clear that we've got so many talented players. I mean, Refilwe Jane is another example who plays for AC Milan. So if some of our players are playing at the highest level, that should then start to open up doors this side. However, it becomes difficult when the structure of women's football in South Africa isn't as adequate as the men's football. Yes, I do understand that certain nuances with regards to women's football isn't on the same level and on the same technical element with regards to the men's. However, that doesn't take away that we should be taking it as seriously, and it should have the same amount of investment as the men's game. Also, another one to mention, Matlo, who's also just signed in for IBA. So for me, we do have players who are representing us, overseas. I just think then that should open more doors here in South Africa, and that should also show people that we have talented players. Can they invest in the women's game? Can they take it a lot more seriously? Because if we've got these players going to Europe and the status quo of women's football is what it is, imagine how many more players and how much more we can profit from thorough development, we can profit from thorough infrastructure when it comes to the women's game. So I'm very excited. I really do look forward to seeing what she achieves and the experience that she gains playing for Atletico Madrid. And if she could bring that back into Banyana Manyana and help them going forward and seeing them performing consistently at the World Cups, and also then being able to impart that knowledge to the younger ones who will be coming through from the youth ranks within the women's football. So this was yet another episode of Diski Talk with Liolo. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. And special mention and special shout out again to Thembi Kgatlana for her major deal that she's just signed with Atletico Madrid. We wish you all the best going forward. And we say we are very proud of you as South Africans. Javas, thank you very much for coming through, my brother.
It's been a pleasure, my man.
It's been a pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed this one.
Sure.
Sure. Signing out.